Winter came softly to the lakeside town, brushing the trees with silver and hush. The floating museum of paper and memory stood quietly under the weight of snowfall, its wooden frames creaking like a great ship docked for reflection. Visitors still came, their breath misting in the morning light, their footsteps muted on the frosted planks. Bao walked the halls each day with Min at his side. Hung's absence lingered, not like an emptiness, but like music once heard and still remembered. The bench by the lake remained undisturbed, except for a fresh flower Min left each Sunday. Sometimes, Bao swore he could hear Hung's voice in the wind, fold, float, remember. Min, now 9, had grown quieter since his grandfather's passing, but his drawings became more vivid, more alive. One evening, Bao found a crayon sketch taped to the kitchen wall. It showed a lake with hundreds of tiny boats shaped like stars. "What's this?" Bao asked, kneeling. Min looked up from the table. "It's the Sky Lake, where the boats go when they fly." Bao nodded slowly, moved. "That's beautiful. I think Grandpa Hung lives there now," Min said. "He's still folding." The museum planned its first winter solstice event, a night of silence and starlight. Bao invited people from around the world to send their most cherished memories written on paper shaped like snowflakes. These would be hung from the museum's central dome, forming a chandelier of memory. Submissions arrived from all continents. Some came written in lost dialects. Others included photographs, locks of hair, or fragments of lullabies. One letter read, "To my sister, who disappeared during the war. I never found your body, but I found peace in this place." Another, "To my unborn child, I never held you, but I fold you into this snowflake, and you will float in light." The chandelier glistened like frost-kissed memory, and when light passed through it, the walls shimmered with dancing shadows of names and love. During this time, Bao received a visit from Lane, a woman in her 50s who had once known him. She carried a small tin box, rusted at the edges, bound in red string. "I was with him in the camp," she said. "We shared stories. He spoke often of a boy he left behind. I think it was Hung." Bao nodded, heart tightening. Lean opened the box. Inside were folded boats, old, delicate, some with poetry written along the creases. One bore the words, "If I don't return, let this boat carry my song." Bao held the boat like it might fall apart with breath. "Thank you," he whispered. Lean smiled. He wanted his songs to float. Bao placed the boats in a new display case beside Hung's final fold. Legacy met legacy. The room grew warmer. As the snow deepened, Min began composing a melody on the small wooden flute Hung had left him. He called it the Whisper Song. It started soft, with hesitant notes, then grew into a flowing tune that seemed to mimic the lake's voice. During the solstice night, Min performed the piece beneath the chandelier. Bao stood beside him, reading messages from visitors. A hush settled over the room. Some cried. Some simply closed their eyes and breathed. That night, after all guests had left, Bao and Min stood on the frozen dock. "I miss him," Min said. "So do I," Bao replied. Min offered his mittened hand. "Let's fold one together." They did, slowly, reverently. A white paper boat. They placed it on the ice, knowing it would drift when the thaw came. In the months that followed, the museum expanded its outreach programs, workshops in refugee camps, schools in underserved regions, and virtual residencies for poets and artists. Min began helping with the children's letters. Bao noticed how naturally he listened, nodded, offered crayons. "You're like your grandfather," Bao told him once. "No," Min said. "I'm like you. And him. Together." Bao smiled. The best kind of together. In early spring, thaw returned. The lake sang its old songs again. Boats began floating once more. Min stood by the dock one morning and shouted, "Go tell the stars. We're still folding." And the wind, kind and listening, carried the message across the rippling water. Spring unfolded like a memory returning home. Blossoms lit the trees surrounding the lake, and with each breeze, petals danced across the water like paper boats in disguise. The floating museum of paper and memory brimmed with life, not just of the past, but of possibility. Men had taken to planting seeds in the museum's garden, a patch of earth near the back hall. With every boat that sailed from the docks, he planted a seed beside it, whispering the name written on the fold into the soil. "Boats for the lake, seeds for the land," he said. So no story disappears. Bao watched this ritual quietly. He had long believed the museum's work lived in the hearts of visitors, but Min was giving it roots, literally. Soon, children began helping men. They brought seed packets from home, folded boats, and added stories. One little girl named Alia came every week with marigold seeds. She called them sun memories. "Do the plants remember too?" she once asked Min. "Maybe better than we do," he said. That spring, a filmmaker named Kenji from Japan visited to document the museum's journey. He had lost his father to suicide years ago and carried the burden like a sealed envelope he never dared open. Kenji had seen Min's whisper song online and wept. "I want to show the world what you've made here," he told Bao. "But more than that, I want to learn how to grieve. How to fold." Bao invited him to stay for a month. Kenji spent days in quiet observation, camera rolling softly. He captured a Syrian grandmother folding a boat for her vanished son. He filmed Min teaching a boy with a stutter how to say goodbye through paper. He even followed Tao, Bao's wife, as she translated messages sent from Vietnamese war veterans now living abroad. One night, Kenji sat with Bao and Min at the dock. He asked, "Do you ever feel like it's not enough?" Bao replied, "Sometimes. But then I remember, it's not about how much we change. It's that we choose to try." Kenji folded his first boat that night. It read, "Forgive me, Father." He placed it on the water and wept. Min began writing stories to go with each seed he planted. Short, simple tales, a feather that became a forest, a snowflake that never melted, a dog that waited at a dock for 100 years. Bao started collecting them, posting them in a new wing of the museum, the Garden of Little Echoes. Visitors were invited to sit among the plants, listen to the breeze, and read the children's tales. One wall read, "Every story is a seed. Water it with kindness. Watch what grows." A poet from South Africa wrote a haiku on a leaf and left it behind. Hands fold memory. In silence, the seeds will sing. Spring remembers all. The United Nations selected the Floating Museum for a peace education program. Schools from conflict zones would participate in digital workshops, learning to fold and remember. Min and Bao hosted sessions weekly. A boy from Gaza folded a boat with the words, "I miss my brother. His shoes are still at the door." Min wrote him back, "I will plant a tree for him. You are not alone." That tree now grows in the garden center. A plaque reads, "For all who left too soon." One day, Min came home with a limp. Bao looked worried. "What happened?" "I fell chasing a dandelion," Min said, wincing. They laughed. Bao carried him inside, wrapped his ankle, and told him stories from Hung's youth, how he once tried to catch wind with a butterfly net. Min asked, "What do you miss most about Grandpa Hung?" His silence, Bao said after a long pause. "It never pushed away. It made space." Min nodded. "I think my flute does that too." "It does," Bao smiled. "You learned well." In late spring, the museum held a moon night gathering. Families came with lanterns shaped like folded boats. Each lantern carried a name, a hope, or a regret. As the lanterns floated onto the lake, Bao noticed how many hands held one another. Even grief, when shared, could glow. Min played the whisper song again. Alia read one of Min's stories aloud. Kenji's documentary played on a large screen strung between two birch trees. It ended with the words, "Some boats never reach shore, but they still carry us home." That night, Bao sat at the edge of the lake and whispered, "Thank you, Ba. The story's still sailing." And somewhere, deep in the roots and water, the past and present hummed together like old friends around a fire. Summer warmed the lakeside town with golden afternoons and the long hush of twilight. By now, the floating museum of paper and memory had become a sanctuary, not only for remembrance, but for return. Return of visitors, of old letters, of memories thought lost, and even of people thought gone forever. Min was now 10, his stride longer, his flute steadier. He wore a small satchel across his chest filled with paper squares and seeds, ready to fold, plant, or gift at a moment's notice. One afternoon, while folding a crane beneath the oak tree, he looked up and said to Bao, "The boats remember us, even if we forget them for a while." Bao smiled. "They float our memory until we're ready again." That summer, a letter arrived postmarked from Berlin. It was written by a man named Elias Roth, whose father had been stationed as a war doctor during the Vietnam conflict. Elias wrote, "My father folded paper cranes and hid them in his medical bag. He said each one was for someone he couldn't save. After he passed, I found one marked hung. I never knew who that was until I saw your museum." Bao read the letter aloud to Min. "What do you think?" "I think the cranes were boats in the sky," Min said. Bao wrote back and invited Elias to visit. Elias arrived weeks later, tall and soft-spoken, carrying an old leather satchel filled with paper artifacts. Together, he and Bao examined each one. Min watched, fascinated. There was a crane marked with the year 1968, another folded from a German newspaper, and one made from a bloodstained bandage. Bao held them like holy relics. Elias confessed, "My father never forgave himself for the lives he couldn't save. These were his way of grieving." Bao nodded. "Then we'll give his grief a place to rest." They created a new corner in the museum, called the Doctor's Cranes. Each one encased in glass, paired with a name or a poem. Min added a small water dish beside them. "So they can float in spirit," he said. During a town council meeting, Bao proposed a new tradition, the Lanterns of Return. Each summer, families would write letters to loved ones, alive or departed, and place them inside floating lanterns. At dusk, they would release them onto the lake. The idea was met with unanimous support. Preparation began immediately. Children painted lanterns. Elders shared calligraphy. One woman, Lynn, brought out a letter she'd written to her brother who had disappeared 40 years earlier. "I never had a grave," she whispered. "Maybe this can be his sky." Bao promised to float it himself. On the night of the first Lanterns of Return, the lakeside shimmered with candlelight and voices soft as lullabies. Min led the procession, holding a lantern shaped like a folded turtle, an ancient Vietnamese symbol of longevity and memory. He whispered, "This one's for Grandpa Hung. It floats slow, so the memory lasts longer." Kenji returned to capture the night. His second documentary now focused on traditions born from memory, showing how remembrance could become ritual. He interviewed Bao that evening. "What do you hope people take away from this?" Bao replied, "That returning isn't about going backward. It's about coming home to what still matters." The lanterns floated like stars on the lake. Children clapped as one flipped and righted itself. A hush came over the crowd as a gust of wind carried the lanterns toward the deeper water. Then someone began to sing, an old Vietnamese lullaby. Others joined. Soon the entire lake was surrounded by voices, a chorus of healing. The next morning, Min found a new visitor in the museum, a monk from Cambodia named Sothan. He carried a weathered prayer wheel and walked with a limp. "I heard about the boats," he said. "We have floating rituals too." He shared a story of a river where monks released petals with names of the deceased. "But war stole our river. Now I float names in silence." Bao invited him to create a sacred space in the museum's garden. Sothan chose a corner under a willow tree. There, he strung threads between branches, each tied with a paper petal. Visitors could write names or prayers and hang them. He called it the wind wheel. Men loved spinning the prayer wheel beside him, listening to the wooden rattle. "Each spin is a memory rising," Sothan said. By midsummer, the museum expanded its digital archive. Families around the world uploaded scans of old letters, boat patterns, and memory seeds. A family in Sierra Leone sent drawings folded into doves. A girl in Ukraine sent a photo of her grandfather's war diary. A refugee center in Jordan began teaching boat folding as therapy. Men helped translate children's messages. He spoke 5 languages now, not fluently, but enough to fold meaning from words. He called it the language of hands. Bao began calling him the museum's little lantern. As the summer waned, Bao grew quieter. He walked more slowly. Tao noticed his cough returning. "You should rest more," she said gently. "I will." After the next planting, he smiled. One evening, Bao asked men to sit by the dock. "Do you know why I stayed?" Bao asked. Men shook his head. "Because when Hung started folding, I realized memory isn't about holding on. It's about letting go, gently, like a boat." Men leaned on his shoulder. "You let go beautifully." "No," Bao chuckled. "I learned from you." On the final day of summer, the museum held a quiet event, no lanterns, no songs. Just silence. Each visitor folded a boat, placed it in the lake, and watched. No names were read aloud. No photographs displayed. Just the folding. The floating. The return. Min and Bao sat by the water's edge. "Do you think they hear us?" Min asked. "I think they've always been listening." The lake rippled. A boat caught a gust of wind and kept going. The air turned crisp. Autumn had arrived like a quiet guest, slipping through windows with amber breath and waking memories long dormant. The floating museum glowed golden in the softer light, its paper walls whispering as wind curled through them. Leaves rustled like distant applause, and Bao watched from the porch, wrapped in a shawl Tao had knit for him last winter. Men sat cross-legged nearby, stringing dried seeds into bracelets, charms, and what he called remembrance rings. "What are those for?" Bao asked. "Stories that want to stay close," Min said. Bao nodded. "Some stories never leave. They just wait to be heard again." A week into October, a letter arrived from a woman named Claire Beaumont, an archivist from Marseille. She had discovered a cache of letters written by French soldiers during the Indochina War. One envelope bore the name Hung Tran, addressed but never sent. "I believe it belongs to your family," she wrote. Bao's hands trembled as he opened the scanned copy. The handwriting was elegant, in French and Vietnamese, signed by a man named Jules Lemoyne, a friend, perhaps. The letter spoke of regret, of sunsets over rice paddies, and of a secret garden behind an old temple where Hung once taught local children how to fold boats. Bao shared it with Min. "Did you know about this garden?" Min asked. "No," Bao whispered. "But I remember his hands always smelled like jasmine." Claire arrived a month later, carrying the original letter in a glass case. She and Bao spent days tracing records, finding maps, and piecing together a portrait of Hung not just as a veteran or a father, but as a quiet rebel of kindness. He had protected orphans, folded hope into every crease, and planted flowers in war-torn courtyards. Bao cried once. Just once. In the garden, holding the glass case, surrounded by Min's echo plants. "He wasn't just my father," Bao said. "He was everyone's shelter." Min placed the case on a pedestal inside the museum, beneath a new sign, Echoes Across Water. A storm rolled in the following week. Fierce winds ripped several of the museum's outer walls. The boat dock splintered at one end. A few glass cases were damaged, including one of the doctor's cranes. Min found Bao repairing the wall, hammer in hand. "You should rest," Min pleaded. "If I don't fix it, who will?" Bao replied. Min paused. "Me." Bao looked at him. "You?" "Yes," Min said. "You taught me how. You and Grandpa Hung." Bao stepped back. He handed the hammer to Min. "Then I'll help you." They worked together through the rain's tail end, laughter punctuating every crack of thunder. Visitors and townspeople came the next day to help. Within 3 days, the museum was repaired, stronger, with new beams engraved with names of those who had folded boats in its halls. Tao said, "Storms don't destroy us. They reveal how many hands are willing to rebuild." In late October, the town held a special event, the Reunion Fold. Inspired by Min's idea, every household was asked to create a boat in honor of someone they'd lost contact with, a friend, a sibling, a neighbor, and write a message inviting them back. The boats were displayed around the town square before being sent down the river together. Min folded one for his friend Alia, who had moved away. Bao folded one for a cousin he hadn't seen in 50 years. Kenji returned to document the ceremony. He focused less on the faces and more on the hands, the wrinkled, the small, the trembling, the firm, all folding with care. That night, the river glowed like a scroll of light, winding its way beyond the town, carrying the quiet weight of longing. Near Halloween, Min found a box beneath a loose floorboard in the museum. Inside were old film reels, tiny journals, and a tin case of ink pens. On one reel, in grainy footage, a young hung was seen folding boats with children. No sound. Just the rhythm of hands, the curve of a smile, the quiet dignity of creation. Min and Bao watched it 5 times in silence. After the 5th time, Bao said, "He kept all of this hidden." Min replied, "Maybe he wanted us to find it now, not then." They digitized the film and added it to the museum's new exhibit, Unfolded Lives. As November neared, Bao began to tire more easily. He often sat longer in the garden, watching the seed pods split and scatter in the wind. "I used to think legacy was something you built," he told Tao. "And now?" she asked. "Now I think it's something you let grow." One afternoon, he gave Min a notebook filled with sketches of boats, stories, and plans for future exhibits. "It's yours now," he said. "I'm not ready," Min whispered. "You don't have to be. Just keep folding. The rest will follow." The museum planned a final event for the year, the silent sale. No music, no speeches. Just one boat from each person. One silence. One story. Min chose a paper dyed with indigo, traced with a single word, "Begin." Bao chose rice paper, the thinnest they had, and wrote, "Enough." They folded side by side. And when the day came, they stood at the edge of the lake. Folded hands. Folded paper. Unfolding grief. Unfolding love.